Well, we're into Jericho this morning, and the walls came tumbling down. So let me first of all give you some of the historical context before I get to the story of the falling walls found in chapter 6 of the book of Joshua. Joshua has been chosen by Moses to lead the Israelites into the land of milk and honey, which is called Canaan. Now you might remember that Moses leads them through the desert for 40 years, and he comes to see the land of milk and honey, but he cannot go in. He dies before that happens. But he turned the mantle of authority over to this guy called Joshua. Now we know the desert times, that's the 40 years, were not the best of times, and so you might imagine the Israelite nation, it's really ready for some kind of success. Well, this story is one of those success stories for that tiny Israelite band of believers in one God, the name Yahweh. And so as we are told, according to the Bible, this is how it happened. Now Jericho was shut up from within and from without because of the people of Israel. None went out, and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given into your hand Jericho with its king and with its mighty men of valor." Well, Joshua, with his soldiers, has surrounded the city of Jericho, and barring something very unfortunate like a successful counterattack by those locked into the city, inside the walls, the defeat of Jericho is a given. And the writers of this book of the Bible, the book of Joshua, are very clear that this has only happened because God is on Joshua's and the Israelites' side. Before we go further, let me tell you what my research has brought to my attention. That there have been many archaeological digs on the site of the city of Jericho to try and figure out if this story actually happened. What was debated for decades, I assure you, I read some of the debate, was at the time of the Battle of Jericho, when the walls came tumbling down, was the city inhabited, or was it an old abandoned city site in ruins? Well, you can see that if it was uninhabited, then the walls come tumbling down was not the truth, but a lie. Due to the length of time between then and now, about the year 1500 before birth of Christ, you can see how difficult it was for anybody to figure this out. I would say that some scholars believe this to be a literally true story and some do not. And as much as for anything but our convenience, and because it's there in the Bible, I take it quite literally for us this morning. So the story continues, and it says, "You, the priests, shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city once. Thus you shall do for 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear trumpets and ram's horns before the ark. And on the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, the priests blowing the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat. And the people shall go up to every man then straight before him." Well, if nothing else, we can say that the priests were in much better physical shape than me, as they sure blew their trumpets a lot more than I could ever dream of doing. But the key words here for us are, "And the walls of the city will fall down flat." It is upon this story, it's upon this that the story captures attention of people down through the ages. Well, how, let us ask, could the blowing of trumpets and the shout from the people knock down a wall? Well, the story goes on to tell us, on the 7th day they rose early at the dawn of day and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." And besides Joshua, the priest and the army, there were other characters, though, we need to hear about in this story. And the book of Joshua says, "And the city and all that is within it, it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the harlot, and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers that we sent." Well, did you know that part of the story? Of course, I kind of knew it, but I'm rereading the Bible with new eyes and new ears, and I had to be reminded again that this has taken place. It seems that Joshua must have had some connections to Rahab the harlot, or whore. And she lived in Jericho, and he recruited her as a fifth element agent to keep him informed as to when would be the best time to attack Jericho and to blow the horns and get the walls falling down. And not completely trusting her, I guess, Joshua also had 2 of his men stay hidden in her house so as to confirm that what she said was true. So we hear that she and her family will be spared because she betrays the people of Jericho. Lots of intrigue and cunning behavior in this story. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people raised a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So that the people, that's the army, went up into the city, every man going straight before him, and they took the city. So the city is conquered and then destroyed. All the wealth captured, you might well take note of, is given over to the church. And the story then concludes in this way. "And they burned the city with fire, and all within it. Only the silver, gold, and the vessels of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord were kept. But Rahab the harlot and her father's household and all who belonged to her, Joshua saved alive. And she dwelt in Israel to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho." Well, that's the story. And if this is not bloodthirsty enough, ending the book of Joshua, ending the chapter that we had, chapter 6, the writers of the book of Joshua say the following. "Joshua laid an oath upon them," that's the people at that time, saying, "Cursed before the Lord be that man that rises up and rebuilds the city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn shall he lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest son shall he set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. Well, this is our third story. Rather difficult stories to take. Let's hope they get a little better as the weeks, the good stories unfold over the course of the summer. But another story filled with death and judgment. What on earth can we take away from this story to confirm us in our faith that we have a loving God? Well, violence put aside, one thing I do like about this story is the reward given to those who show initiative, those who take actions that lead to good result. Now Joshua was like this, and of course it paid off really well for him. He got a foothold in the promised land, and he got to say to his people that God was really on their side. The Rahab character is much more puzzling, perhaps even more interesting though. Why either did Joshua actually recruit a harlot, or why did the book of Joshua writers include her in the story? Now, I don't know any harlots, so I cannot speak with personal knowledge, I assure you. But I would say that generally they do not seem to hold a very high place in society, nor are they looked up to. But in this story we are told that without the help of a harlot, the walls may never have come tumbling down. Perhaps the recorders of this story had some harlots in their families and wanted to raise their status, or perhaps they are telling us to take good care of our harlots, for someday we may need them when we invade our neighboring country. So for us personally, in our church, let's not be shy about taking initiative, about using whatever resources that are at hand and do whatever it takes, or almost whatever it takes, to conquer our enemies and build a promised land. I say Joshua did it, and so there's no reason we too cannot do it. And so we'll go forward with that one thought in mind, and we'll go to better stories in the weeks and the months to come. Thanks be to God. Amen. Let's see if our